Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down everything you need to know about the SMG Rebalance, what changes were made, and what guns you should be using going forward. Now, before we go over the specifics about what's been changed, I thought it'd be a good idea as to give you a little bit of background history as to why the changes were made. And according to PUBG, and just by some of these graphs they shared for 2022 and 2023, the SMGs just saw a very little usage rate when compared to the dominant ARs and DMRs. And what this little graph at the bottom right shows is that ARs and DMRs, of course, had the largest chunk of usage, with sniper rifles having a little sliver. And what was interesting is that the etc tab, or the etc sliver, includes SMGs, shotguns, LMGs, basically any other weapon that's not a sniper, not a DMR, and not an AR. And as you can see, it's a very small usage amount. So what that tells PUBG is, hey, people aren't using these particular weapons for some reason. They would like to increase their viability. So that's why they made these changes. And not only are they increasing the viability because it's low usage, they are also making it an easier entry weapon for newer players. That's something they've kind of openly said, is that they're concerned that new players don't really stand a chance against veteran players who know the meta AR DMR weapons and they've mastered those recoils. For newer players, not being able to use the barrel or the AUG as effectively puts them at a big disadvantage. And while that's obvious, and it should be obvious, they're concerned, I think, that new players will come in, play for a week or whatever and figure out, I'm just getting dominated, and leave. And so this SMG buff is an attempt to let those newer players have some sort of viability when going up against a higher skilled player using a higher skilled weapon. All right, so that's why the changes are being made. Let's go ahead and break down what changes were being made, and then I'll show you some of the data analysis that I did in some of my custom games, and just kind of giving you my thoughts on what you should be using going forward and whether or not this is going to be a good change. So popping over to the survey results after they did their PUBG Labs test, this is where they just kind of give you a high-level overview of what's being changed and honestly what the community voted for that they thought would be a good change. And this is something you all could have done in the survey. I'm sure a lot of you watching this video did, because I kind of pointed that out to you guys to give your feedback. The survey results show this. For changes in movement speed, that's where everybody who runs with an SMG in their hand is now going to run at the same speed as a player with no weapons in their hand. That might not sound like a big buff, but it is actually a pretty big buff, especially in close quarters combat. You don't have to put your gun away to run as fast as possible. You can keep your gun in your hand, allowing you to be able to shoot quicker when you see an enemy. Most people, 35%, said, yeah, that's necessary and is now an appropriate change. Damage adjustments, 37% of people said, yes, it's necessary and is now appropriate. The damage adjustments are as follows. UMP had its base damage increased. PP Bison and the MP 5K had its base damage increased. None of the other SMGs had their base damage increased. For recoil adjustments, 40% of players said it's necessary and is now appropriate. For recoil adjustments, almost every SMG got recoil reduced. MP5K, Uzi, Vector, Tommy Gun, PP Bison, and the UMP all had their vertical horizontal recoil slightly reduced, like 5 to 7%. So not a crazy amount, but still made an already easy to use weapon now even easier, which is pretty crazy if you ask me. And last but not least, the damage over distance. 35% of the people said yes, the change is necessary and is now appropriate. And what that change was talking about was reducing the damage over distance, making the SMGs less effective in medium to long range. I think that's one of the most important factors to consider when nerfing or changing these SMGs in terms of, usability over long distances. The one thing they did not address in the survey, which I think is a big missed opportunity, is the limb damage multiplier. And for those that don't know, limb damage multiplier basically gives you an extra percentage of damage. I want to say it's about 30%, give or take. Extra damage added to the player when you hit their arms or their legs, an unarmored part of their body essentially. It's really annoying about that is that it's SMGs only that get that benefit. So no other weapon class gets a limb damage multiplier. It's only SMG. So when the term spray and pray is being used with an SMG, it's because you can literally spray and pray at your target, and as long as your bullets hit, you're going to be doing good damage. Obviously you do more damage if you hit them in the head, But in most cases, what you'll see is you'll do more damage hitting them in the upper leg and the arm than you would in the chest of a level 2 or level 3 target, which doesn't make a lot of sense to most people. So not sure why that really hasn't been addressed yet. So that's in a nutshell what changes were made to the SMGs. Now, I've done some testing and analysis on a number of the SMGs. I use the MP5K, the UMP, and I compared them against like the AUG, one of the most popular assault rifles, just to kind of get a gauge as to what the changes did to the weapon, how it feels, and how it's used. So let's kind of break some of that down. All right, now before we break down any kind of discussion about damage per bullet and hits to kill, time to kill, all that kind of stuff, I just want to make it very clear, all of that should have a big asterisk next to it, because a lot of the damage numbers are dependent on a number of factors. And in PUBG specifically, there's different damage numbers based on exactly where you hit your target. So first, don't pay attention to all the damage numbers specifically down below. This is from an old, outdated chart. But what I want to show you is this graph, or this image on the left here, and it shows what I'm trying to tell you pretty clearly. So in PUBG, when you have a headshot, that's considered head and neck, but you can notice that there's a huge discrepancy in the damage number difference from a headshot to a neck shot. Both will take armor away from your helmet, but they both apply wildly different damage numbers. So that's a key point to remember, that when we discuss damage numbers, I'm talking about headshots getting hit in the head specifically. When talking about the chest shots, there's a wildly different damage number applied depending on where you're hit in the chest. You can see even getting hit in the upper vest here, that's considered a vest chest shot, but it's a much different number than the high chest or low abdomen area. And even in between, you can see the damage numbers that are applied are wildly different. Same thing applies to the limb damage multiplier that we discussed earlier. There's actually 3 different variations of limb damage multiplier for the weapons. You have upper arm, lower arm, and the hand. Then you have upper leg, lower leg, and the feet. So just kind of keep that in mind. In a real world scenario, when we say leg shot, you know, we're talking about upper leg, but you can imagine how difficult it would be to aim at that very specific body part and hit it repeatedly, versus, you know, the hitting the kneecap down below to the ankle, or the upper arm to the forearm, etc. So I just wanted to kind of put that that asterisk out there, just to keep that in mind, that even though some of the numbers may seem kind of wild in terms of damage or hits to kill, in real use cases, it's going to vary greatly every engagement that you have. All right, so with that out the way, let's actually drill down some of the testing that we did. And I'm not going to go over each specific instance, but just to give you an idea, what I did was I moved the target from 5 meters, 50 meters, 100, and even 200 meters away, just to give a nice swath of test data to look at. And I focused specifically on the UMP and the AUG for these tests, mainly because the UMP has the highest damage per bullet of any of the SMGs, and the AUG is the most popular assault rifle, at least, you know, according to the season 30 data right now. So that's why I use those two. Keep in mind that the other SMGs like the MP5K, the JS9, MP9, those have a lower damage per bullet, but a much higher fire rate, which means they actually have a lower time to kill. So they will eliminate your target quicker because they shoot way faster than the UMP. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so first, 5 meters is pretty much considering any point blank target. The UMP for headshot is only 2 shots of the head, same as the AUG. For a chest shot in the lower abdomen, you're looking at 4 shots for the UMP, 5 shots for the AUG. And for the legs, it's 3 shots for the UMP, 4 shots for the AUG. Again, for that limb damage multiplier that you get with the SMG. So you can actually kill your target with less shots with the UMP than you can with the AUG. At 50 meters, it's pretty much the same story. Headshot is still 2 shots to the head for both weapons, 4 shots in the chest with the UMP, 5 shots with the AUG. And for the leg, it's 4 shots even for both. So both will take the same amount of leg shots at 50 meters. 100 meters is kind of where the tables start to turn, where the assault rifle now is more dominant because it has less damage drop off over distance. For a headshot at 100 meters, the AUG only needs 2 shots, UMP needs 3. The chest shots are 5, they're equal for both weapons. And the leg shots, the UMP actually wins again here with 4 shots to 5 shots in the leg for the AUG. Now at 200 meters, it's the same story. The AUG requires 1 less headshot than the UMP. It's 2 instead of 3. The AUG is 5 chest shots. The UMP is 6. And for the leg, the UMP is actually still dominant here with only 5 leg shots needed compared to 6 leg shots with the AUG. Now I want to make it very, very, very clear that I think the general use of an SMG, the real world usability, is really only up to about 100 meters. I think even 100 meters is a bit of a stretch. You know, maybe if you have a 6x or a 4x on the gun to really enhance those longer distance sprays or shots. Anything with a red dot at 100 meters, it's a long ways away to hit that target. Then you have to take into account SMGs have a much slower bullet velocity than your assault rifle. So even though I'm saying, you know, it's 2 shots versus 3 shots, realistically, the time to kill for the assault rifles is going to be lower than most SMGs once you start adding some distance to that equation, because that bullet is going to travel way faster for the assault rifle than it is for the SMG. The thing to remember and keep in mind is that people can still hit lucky shots at long range, right? So if you're using an SMG, you can still hit targets at this long range and you're still going to be doing a significant amount of damage. Now, before I give you my closing thoughts, I want to show you some in-game footage of me testing the movement speed buff and the run speed buff of the SMGs, because this is one of those things that's hard to quantify on paper, but way easier if you see it in practice. So take a look at this clip. Assault rifle. You're strafing, going left to right. I'm ADSing, right? But just pay attention to the movement speed of the character, okay? All right, now SMG. Look at how much faster we move now. And having this movement speed buff is very, very big when you're trying to not get shot at by your enemy, because you make yourself a harder to hit target if you're now moving like this. You can strafe back and forth. You can wide peek out of cover. You can be more unpredictable in your movements when your character moves that much faster. The other thing that PUBG has done has made it to where your character no longer runs faster with no guns in your hand when compared to an SMG. It used to be you would want to put your guns away, have no guns in your hand, because your character would run faster. And the character speeds are still different for other guns. So like if you have an assault rifle, your character will run slightly faster than a character with an LMG or a sniper rifle. So that does still exist. However, now what they've done to buff the SMGs even more is I should be able to hit auto run with both of these characters, and neither one should pull away from the other, because the SMG in your hand is supposed to have no impact on the movement speed of the character. So let's see if we can time this right with both keyboards. I'm going to try to hit auto run. 3, 2, 1, go. And if you ask me, that's pretty much dead on the nose. Obviously, I must have hit go a little bit quicker on the character on the right. But as you can see, neither one is pulling away from each other. So you have identical movement speeds with an SMG in your hand versus no gun in your hand. And while that doesn't seem like a big thing, you have to consider the engagement, like the tactical position you might be in when that's going to be useful. So you just get a knock and you want to push that knock. Well, you no longer have to put yourself in a vulnerable position by running with no guns in your hand to get close to your target. If you want to push the next ridge quickly after a smoke grenade, you no longer have to put yourself in that vulnerable position where, you know, if you do see an enemy, you got to pull out your gun, then you can shoot. Right now with an SMG, your gun is always at the ready. So boom, you see somebody and oh, I hit the wrong button. Boom, you see somebody, you're ready to shoot. There's no like, oh, there's an enemy. Oh, and then you got to shoot. No, you're always ready to go. All right, guys. So my closing thoughts and recap on the SMG Rebalance. Number one, I'll say I actually like the thought process of making SMGs more deadly for close range. I think that's actually a good move in terms of like a meta shift. The way I look at it in a perfect ideal world is that me as the player, I should have to make a tactical decision as to which weapons, which loadout I'm going to have based on where I think the random circle is going to go next. So if I think the circle is going to go into Los Leones in game, then I should maybe be planning for that better in game and having an SMG for close range combat and then a DMR or a sniper to package with that. Alternatively, if I think the circle, it looks like it might shift out to the water, or it might shift out to an open area where more medium to long range engagements are going to happen, then maybe the assault rifle is the more appropriate weapon to use for that. I like having to think about those kind of tactical decisions and plays versus just picking the best weapon that's always in the game on every map and using that for every scenario. However, having said that, I don't think the balance that PUBG is implementing accomplishes that because of the limb damage multiplier still being there, and I just don't think the damage over a distance is reduced enough for SMGs. Like in most cases when I looked at the numbers, it was like 1 or 2 bullets less to kill with the UMP versus the top tier world spawn assault rifle. So I just don't think that's enough. I think you should have to work extra hard to use an SMG long range, or even more importantly, you should have to change weapons. You should have to pull out your DMR, pull out your sniper once you're out of that effective range. And although the SMGs have typically a lower bullet velocity, which is going to make hitting longer distance targets harder, it's not impossible. And if you do manage to land those shots, because you still have that limb damage multiplier, you're still getting rewarded with high damage numbers. So I don't think they quite hit the mark. I would like to see an additional nerf to the damage over distance and a complete removal to limb damage multiplier. I do like that new players have something to be a little more user friendly to get a hold of and use for close range engagements. I'm a fan of that. And me personally, I actually have been using the MP5K a lot lately, and say what you will, obviously, because it has the limb damage multiplier, it's kind of cheesy, whatever. Look, it's in the game, everyone's fair game to use it. I think that is probably one of the best weapons right now in terms of overall usage, time to kill. It has a large ammo capacity. You put a heavy stock on it. I like a thumb grip personally because I don't think the recoil is that bad, but you could still slap a half grip or a vert grip on it. Compensator or suppressor, red dot and a 6x, and I mean, it's a serious weapon to carry throughout most phases of the game. And as long as you're playing smart and you have a DMR or a sniper to fall back on for those medium to long range engagements, I think it's a really great weapon in its current state, and honestly probably one of the best world spawn weapons you can get right now. So let me know you guys' thoughts down below. What do you think overall about the direction of the SMG balance, and then B, if you would make any tweaks to it, what tweaks would you make? Would you revert it full stop? Would you alter it a little bit, kind of like some of the suggestions that I made, or do you have other thoughts that I didn't think about that you'd like to share below? So let us know, and thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, of course, leave it a thumbs up, share it with a buddy, and get subscribed for more PUBG content. I'll have more videos for you guys coming very soon. Take care. Peace.